Speaking of the coach, no more tag for JB Bickerstaff, no more interim. Do you think he dealt with enough, Coach? There's a laundry list of what he had to deal with this team.
I just put down a couple things that he had to deal with. There were a lot of injuries last year, most notably Mike Conley. Then the team was getting old. A lot of those pieces have been moved on. Then they were also getting slow as they were getting old. Then they couldn't shoot the basketball. Therefore, they also couldn't score the basketball. And then their head coach gets fired. This guy was in a tough situation taking over with the interim tag, which has now been erased. And I would have to believe that for management to name him as the head coach, they must feel he has a pretty good relationship with the two stars of that team.
I was going to say, from a player standpoint, is it clear, considering it seemed like, let's be fair, the relationship between Marc Gasol and David Fizdale was part of the reason why that fizzled out, to say then, hey, look, the relationship must be good if they went back and said, hey, look, you know, JB's the guy moving forward.
Absolutely, but you just gave the recipe for disaster. Can't score.
22 wins.
That is terrible.
14th in the West, that is disaster.
Yeah, you got to tip your hat off to him because
we're trying to be nice to the people at home. Don't remind them of all the misery.
Facts is facts. Numbers don't lie, and it's amazing to see what Bickerstaff was able to do, you know, with all that adjusting on the fly. And he kept those guys with the talent that he had assembled out there on the court. They still competed at a high level, just fell a little short a lot of times. But I love what he, what he did with the team last year from a competitive standpoint.
Coach, we always talk about players and when they get a contract, not having to go ahead and play for food necessarily. You know that if you miss shots, you're back out there the next day. How difficult is it to coach for JB in an interim position, and now compare that to coming into camp where he knows that he's the guy with the confidence from the organization?
I don't think we should fool ourselves here. Even though he's got the title of head coach, there is pressure on him. You've got two guys in Conley and Gasol who are part of that grindhouse mentality, part of playoffs every year. Last season was the first time since I think it was 2009-10 that they had not made the playoffs. So it broke that string of 7 straight seasons making the playoffs. Memphis fans love their basketball, and there's pressure on the head coach to take these guys who are coming back now from injury, put them together, form a team, get an identity now. It's not that grit, grind, knock them down, get on the glass, play 89, 90-point games. It's what now? What's the new mentality, identity going to be?
As a leader and a guy who was a veteran who helped younger players, the guys we just talked about in this segment, in Conley and Gasol, how important is it that they are now an extension of the message JB wants to put out there with the culture to the Jaren Jacksons and some of the younger players we're going to talk about?
It's so important, and it's paramount that, the veteran guys be a bridge between, front office, coaching staff, everything, because as you go, they go, and you have to, understand your influence and the magnitude of your influence. And, being on that platform, you can't take it lightly. You have to understand that these guys look up to you. Some of these guys watch you growing up. They know that you are the culture for this organization and this franchise. So as you go, they will go and they will follow.
Grizzlies, if he stays healthy, have a budding and future star in Jaren Jackson Jr. We will get a chance to break him down. What kind of an impact can he have in his rookie campaign? How about the Grizzlies and the youth movement? We'll talk about that when we come back. Our team preview continues.
Is that velvet?
Jackson Jr. with the mismatch. Showing the three-point range, the shot blocking ability. Jackson Jr. with another emphatic block. There's Jaren Jackson, the rookie out of Michigan State. Jackson Jr. The ceiling is unbelievably high.
One of the better young kids. That's all you heard from everybody around the draft. Big reason. Dad played in the game. He grew up around the game. Very mature kid, yet at the same time, guys, Jaren Jackson in college didn't really get a chance to show off what he could do because they had so much talent at Michigan State, and he still really is raw when you look at his size, his length and ability, and he could shoot the basketball.
And there are those that are saying this may be the best player to come out of last year's draft. Extremely talented, extremely skilled. I like the pedigree part of his dad played in the league 13 years. Dad won a championship along the way. Yeah, it wasn't easy for his dad. He went undrafted coming out of Georgetown. So I'm sure he's instilled a lot of the work ethic things that it took for him to make the league and stay in the league. And that's why this young man is great upside right here.
You think about Karan, today's NBA. He's got the skill set you're looking for with the size combined with that jump shot.
Yeah, the frame, the ability, which you touched on, Coach. His versatility to shoot the ball on the outside on the perimeter, pick and pop guy. He can put the ball on the floor multiple times. He have counter moves already. And then defensively, he's active. He's a long, wiry body. You saw that in the summer league. I was just like in shock when I saw him, knocking down consistent shots on the perimeter and then running guys down, sacrificing his game, sacrificing his body on the defensive end of the floor. It was just amazing to see and refreshing to watch a young, talented guy. And he's one of the guys that's out there in the forefront. When you're talking about Rookie of the Year, he's in that breath.
And we'll have to get Michigan State and Ohio State to get along with the team, but I'm sure Mike Conley's going to like having Jaren Jackson at his disposal. How does he kind of fit in to this offense with what he can do in his skill set, Coach, when you look at Conley and Gasol?
The first thing that jumped out at me for this young man is you're playing with a guy in Gasol who's been around the league a long time, won a lot of games, been in a lot of playoffs, and this young man can be mentored by Marc Gasol, and Gasol is so willing. He's that kind of guy, lending himself to younger guys to try and help them become better. They look like they could be a pretty interesting combination together, both on the floor or one on, one off, however the coach decides he wants to use them.
He's going to get a lot of minutes with this team. You look at where he plays, how he plays. He fits in on the floor right now. As a young player, how much does it help him, as Coach talked about, to have Gasol and Conley, those two guys there for him?
It's important to play with vets because knowingly how they play, they're going to set you up and put you in positions to be a better version of yourself. You see that at pickup basketball all the time where guys are dribbling the ball and the old guys dribbling up the court saying, young fella, go right there to that spot. That's your sweet spot, and put you in position to score the basketball. And you're going to see a lot of that with Mike Conley because they're going to play off one another. He's going to be going downhill, drawing double teams, putting him in the pocket where he can consistently knock down a little 17-footer.
Can't just have three guys if you're going to succeed, and the Grizzlies are going to make this a much better season. Let's take a look at the depth chart as we continue to preview where they're at moving ahead into this season. And the addition of Kyle Anderson, Karan, I know you like that for this team.
I really do. Slow-mo, I love his skill set. I love what he brings to the game. And just being in with the San Antonio Spurs for a couple of seasons, I think he can help them a lot with, pace of the game, flow, size up, skill set. Omri Caspi also, too. He's another guy that's a veteran guy, was on that championship team last year with the Warriors. So slow-mo, though, I really love his game, man. I love his efficiency from an offensive standpoint. This a welcoming sight to have him on that ball club.
We saw a couple of guys at Oregon, Coach, in that great team they had in college a couple of years ago. One, Jordan Bell, have a lot of success with the Warriors. The other didn't get as much attention, but Dylan Brooks had a very, very nice first season with this team.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the process of the next young group coming up behind Conley, who we mentioned has 3 more years on his contract, and then whatever happens with Gasol at the end of the season. But they like some of these young guys. This is one of them who showed them when he got minutes on the floor that I can be a pretty good NBA player. So I would expect to see him in the rotation on a regular basis.
Yeah, Brooks was a guy who last year got some great minutes, but now getting him next to Conley again, you go back to that. It's tough not to think, Karan, that that's going to be a major help for him.
Yeah, it's going to be a major help because now you're playing with guys that really know how to play, that been in those battles that you just can't explain or describe because, they have a wealth of insight and this playing ability. So playing with Gasol, playing with those guys, it's going to be a special season for them.
All right, time to do an exercise here on the floor. First time in the history of team previews. Cross your fingers. We're going to talk about Chandler Parsons.
Oh, gee.
Keeping Chandler Parsons healthy. I know this is rack back last year and the year prior, but Karan, they're a way better team if he's on the floor.
Absolutely, because he's a guy that can be consistent. If he's out there and available, he can be consistent because he has the numbers when he's active and when he's available. And that's just been his Achilles heel, being out there on a consistent basis where, he's available for this ball club. But I love his energy. I love that he's always on the sideline encouraging. And most importantly, he's going to be a welcoming voice in that locker room still because with a wealth of young talent, he still can educate these guys on the importance of taking care of their body and staying available.
Who are you talking about, Gallinari? Because think about it now.
Well, they're very interchangeable, Coach.
Both of these guys have really struggled getting past the injuries, and it's really held back the potential and where their career could be. But in 2016, remember, he signed a 4-year deal, $94 million. And the fans in Memphis are waiting for him to be able to play the majority of the game. So it's very important for him, very important for his mental state of mind, that he can come in and be a contributor.
Well, it's guaranteed also that the Grizzlies remember that they gave him all of that money. We know that. But, you know, we go back to kind of the beginning of the segment. You think about Jaren Jackson. We know he could score the basketball at this level, probably could do it now. But to have Parsons as that third scorer, the pressure that takes off of everybody else on the roster is massive.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off the young guys and even the veteran guys. You know, that duel, the two guys with Conley and Gasol, they don't have to do so much. And then Jackson, you know, development of him on the fly. But if you have that consistent other guy that can score and be available, which you touched on, Coach, that is like, you definitely need that in order to have a good quality foundation going forward.
I think some people actually are trying to remember how good was this guy at one point, because when you miss as many games as he's missed over the last couple seasons, you tend to forget. Why did we sign him to that kind? What made this guy that good that we paid him that kind of money? It sure would be nice to see him get back to that point where he could do the things.
Coaches were superstitious. Do you cross your fingers a lot? Or
I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him.
I'm so superstitious. Ridiculous.
When we come back, the starters, they'll chime in. Should the Grizzlies move forward this season or perhaps blow it up and start over? Sometimes it's good to go backwards first. We'll answer that question when we come back. Mike Conley, that's a big smile. Feels healthy, great contract, and playing golf at the State Farm Showdown. The question is, should he be on the move? The starters break down, true or false, the Grizz should actually blow it up.
Skeets and Lee here from the starters with your next point about the Memphis Grizzlies. True or false, Lee? The Grizzlies should blow it up. You got to move on from this grit and grind.
Well, true, but I think we asked this question all season, last season as well, with Marc Gasol and Mike Conley, of course. They're stalwarts who have been there forever. But I think it is time to move on, because even if those guys come back, and Mike Conley obviously missed most of last season with an injury, I just don't think the Grizzlies are deep enough to really contend in the Western Conference. Their time 4 or 5 years ago, they were really, really good. The grit and grind era at its best. But now I think Gasol and Conley deserve a chance to go somewhere else and perhaps win with another team that's fighting for the playoffs. The Grizzlies seem to be caught a little bit too, with having some veteran players and some young players not quite sure what they're trying to do. I think it would be respectful to let those guys maybe seek greener pastures.
So you like the idea of moving on from Gasol and even Conley and saying, here, Jaren Jackson Jr., we drafted you 4th. You looked great at Summer League. Have at it. This is your team. You want to do that because this team, when you have Jaren Jackson Jr. coming in, you signed Kyle Anderson, and you have a healthy Gasol and a healthy Conley.
But again,
that's a playoff team.
But there may be a playoff team, but they're not a serious contender. And I think once you get to that point, that's when you have to sort of hit the reset button.
Because you get caught in the middle.
Of course,
that's what you're worried about.
And that's frustrating for fans, because it's like, oh, maybe we finish 41-41 and we get killed in the first round of the playoffs. Whereas if you cash in on some of those assets, and I still think there's a lot of value between Conley and Gasol, then maybe you start building towards the future a bit. I think Jaren Jackson could be a very good player, but I just think the Grizzlies' time has passed from the Zach Randolph days and Tony Allen and all those guys. Time to move on.
Sort of comparing it in a weird way to the Lob City Clippers.
Of course,
they had their run, never obviously won a title or anything. It was great.
But they were legit contenders for a couple of years there, and that's really where you want to be. You don't want to be in that sort of no man's land of maybe we make the playoffs, maybe we don't. We're not quite sure which team we are.
Well, that's where we stand on the Grizzlies. Let's hear from you guys. Should they blow it up? Kevin O'Connor, tweet at us. Let us know. # the starters.
From whether or not they should blow it up to whether or not they can improve off of last year, we play some more or less. Put a bow on the preview next.